Good evening, my friend. I'm glad you're here. The night has settled, the air is calm, and now it is your time to rest. Let your breathing slow. Let the world around you soften. Let the gentle darkness of your room become a quiet companion. There is nothing you need to do, nothing you need to hold on to. Just allow yourself to drift into stillness. Allow your mind to loosen its grip, and let the soft glow of a story guide you gently towards sleep. Tonight, we descend into a realm many fear, but few truly understand. A realm not of horror, but of quiet order. Not of chaos, but of balance. Not of fire and torment, but of silence. A silence older than time. A silence that watches, listens, and endures. Tonight, we follow a quiet flame into the underworld. Tonight, we listen to the peaceful legend of Hades, the silent king, and the story that shaped the seasons of the earth. Let your room fall still. Feel the calm gather around your shoulders, like a soft mantle. As the world grows quieter, imagine a door gently opening at the edge of your thoughts. A doorway carved from shadow and shimmering dust. A passage that leads downward, far beneath the surface of everything you know. You do not have to fear this descent. It is gentle. It is slow. It is safe. The underworld you enter tonight is not the frightening place of later stories. It is a kingdom of quiet laws, quiet footsteps, and quiet hearts. It is a land shaped by the will of a king who desired order, not cruelty. Hades, the unseen one, the keeper of boundaries, the guardian of souls. So many have misunderstood him, so many have spoken of him in tones of dread and shadows. But tonight, we meet him as he truly was, a patient ruler, a watcher of worlds, a being carved not from malice, but from solitude and duty. Before we begin, breathe in deeply, hold for a moment, and exhale slowly. Let the weight of your body sink deeper into rest. As you drift, allow me to offer you a gentle summary of the tale we will explore. A story, not of terror, but of transitions. A story of a maiden who became a queen, a mother who reshaped the earth with grief, a king who found companionship in the most unexpected soul, and a cycle that continues to this very night. Long ago, in the age when gods still walked the earth openly, there lived a young maiden named Kor, later known as Persephone. She was the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of grain, harvest, and every green thing that breathes beneath the sun. Demeter loved her daughter fiercely, so fiercely that she guarded her from the world, from choices, from fate. Kor lived, surrounded by flowers and nymphs, untouched by sorrow, untouched by danger, untouched even by identity. She was simply the maiden, suspended in a timeless spring. But destiny moves in quiet ways. One day, while she wandered a field painted with new blossoms, the earth shifted beneath her feet. A crack opened, not with violence, not with fire, but with the softness of a door quietly unsticking. And from that door rose a chariot of obsidian and gold. At its reins stood Hades, not monstrous, not cruel, but solemn, certain, drawn by a force older than both of them. He took her hand, and the chariot descended, carrying her into the underworld. Above, Demeter screamed for her child. For 9 days she searched, eating nothing, sleeping nowhere, burning torches that never dimmed. The world withered with her grief. Crops shriveled, animals starved. Humans cried to the heavens for mercy, and still no answer came. Meanwhile, in the quiet halls beneath the earth, Persephone learned the shape of her new world. She walked corridors lined with marble, the color of night. She touched flowers that bloomed without sunlight. She listened to the whispers of souls who wandered gently through the meadows of asphodel. And she watched Hades, always calm, always patient, rule with a steadiness she had never known. He gave her a throne beside his, not as a prisoner, not as an ornament, but as a queen, a partner, a mind equal to his own. A stillness began to settle in her bones, a strength blooming quietly in her heart. But fate does not forget, and neither did Demeter. At last, Zeus intervened, sending Hermes to retrieve her. But before she left, Persephone tasted 6 pomegranate seeds, whether by curiosity, kindness, or choice, no one can say, and those seeds bound her to the underworld. So, an agreement was forged, 6 months above, 6 months below, 6 months of spring and summer, when Demeter's joy filled the earth with green, 6 months of autumn and winter, when the world grew quiet and still, waiting for Persephone's return. This is the rhythm of the earth, the breathing of the seasons, the eternal dance of mother, daughter, and king. Tonight, we honor that story. Tonight, we move through its shadows softly, step by step. Tonight, we descend beside Persephone and listen to the heartbeat of the underworld. Now, let the descent begin. Feel the temperature shift. Cool, but not cold. Still, but not empty. The air grows heavier, as if holding its breath in respect. The ground becomes smooth beneath your feet, polished by ages of quiet footsteps. Ahead, the darkness glows with a faint, warm shimmer. A single flame flickers small, steady, unwavering. A quiet flame. Its light dances on the black stone walls, like golden whispers brushing against midnight. Follow it. It leads you deeper, gently, safely, silently. Around you, thin veils of mist drift in slow spirals. The scent of earth is rich and ancient, like forgotten rain on deep soil. Shadows bend around the edges of your vision, never threatening, only guiding. The flame moves slowly, as if keeping pace with your breath. In, out, in, out. Now you begin to see the underworld, not a realm of torment, but a realm of structure, a place where every soul has a destination, a place where every river, every stone, every boundary has meaning. To your left, a river glimmers with memory. To your right, a meadow spreads, filled with pale flowers swaying in a wind that does not exist. Ahead, stairs carved from volcanic glass led downward in a gentle spiral, and at the bottom sits a throne, sculpted from silent night. Hades sits upon it, his posture calm, his presence steady, his eyes not cruel, but aware, ancient, understanding, and unmovable. He does not speak. He does not need to. The underworld speaks for him. This is the king we will come to know tonight. This is the realm we will wander. And this is the story that will carry you softly into sleep. So breathe once more, slowly, deeply. Let the quiet flame guide you forward. Let the darkness cradle you. Let the whispering of ancient stones lull you. You are safe. You are welcome. And the story is just beginning. Now, let us step fully into the peaceful legend of Hades, Persephone, and the silent underworld. Before we follow Persephone any further, let us step back in time, far back, long before the chariot rose from the earth, long before the seasons learned to breathe, long before mortals ever whispered the name of Hades in fear or reverence. There was a beginning, a quiet one, a dark one, a beginning that shaped the soul of the king beneath the world. In the earliest days of existence, when mountains were still warm and stars still wet with new light, the Titans ruled everything, and among them was Cronus, the Titan who feared his own children. A prophecy haunted him like a shadow. It whispered that one day, one of his offspring would overthrow him. So, he devised a way to silence the future. Each time his wife Rhea gave birth, Cronus swallowed the child whole. He swallowed them not with cruelty, but with fear. A fear so deep it made him monstrous. The first child disappeared into darkness. Then the second, then the third, and then came Hades, a small, quiet infant, eyes dark as the void between stars. Cronus lifted him, studied him for a heartbeat, then opened his jaws, and Hades fell into silence. But unlike the roaring stories told by poets, the swallowing was not violent. It was soft, almost like slipping into dreamless sleep. Hades did not scream. He did not fight. He simply sank into the dim, echoing chamber of his father's stomach, where his other siblings drifted in the half-light. Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Poseidon, all suspended in timeless quiet. And so began the first chapter of Hades' endless patience. Inside that living prison, time did not flow the way it does for mortals. There were no days. There were no nights. There was only a slow, muted awareness, a sense of existing, a sense of waiting, an ancient stillness. Where another might have seethed, Hades endured. Where another might have panicked, he breathed. Where another might have raged at the unfairness of the world, he listened to the faint pulse of creation beyond the Titan's belly. He waited, not with hope, not with despair, just with acceptance. That acceptance became the marrow of his nature, the core of the king he would later become. A king not made of fire, but of stillness. Years passed, or moments, or centuries. No one truly knows, for gods do not count time as mortals do. But one day, the prison shifted. A tremor ran through Cronus' body. A crack of light pierced the darkness, and the children were released. Zeus, the youngest, had risen against their father. He forced Cronus to disgorge the swallowed gods. One by one, Hades emerged into the world again, not as an infant, but as a god fully formed. His first breath of true air tasted sharp and cold. His first sight of the world was one of chaos and rebellion, and yet he did not rush. He did not roar with vengeance. He simply stood, still, watching, as if he had been carved from the shadow of a mountain. Soon came the great Titanomachy, the war between the gods and the Titans. Lightning split the sky, oceans heaved, mountains cracked. The world burned with the fury of beings who had never known restraint. But even in war, Hades fought quietly. He moved like a shadow folded into itself, precise, patient, measured. He wore a helmet, the helm of invisibility, a gift from the Cyclopes, a helmet that erased him from sight and from memory. With it, Hades slipped through armies unseen. He struck not with thunder, but with inevitability. And when the war finally ended, and the Titans were cast down into Tartarus, the three brothers gathered: Zeus, Poseidon, Hades. They would decide how to divide the world. Zeus took the sky, Poseidon took the sea, and Hades drew the lot of the underworld. Some say he was unlucky, some say the choice cursed him. But Hades did not complain. He did not flinch. He did not envy the others. He simply accepted the realm that fate placed in his hands. The unseen realm, the land beneath all things, a kingdom of endings, a kingdom of beginnings, a kingdom where every soul eventually arrived. Hades descended into his new world without fear. The darkness did not frighten him. It welcomed him. It felt familiar, almost comforting. It echoed the quiet patience he had carried since the moment he was swallowed. When he reached the deepest chambers, he began shaping his domain. Not with fire, not with destruction, but with order. He carved paths through the endless stone. He raised halls, lit by pale light. He set boundaries for the wandering dead, so they would not be lost. The underworld became a landscape of structure, a place of gentle inevitability, a place where nothing was rushed and nothing was wasted. 5 rivers wound through the realm, each with its own voice. Styx, the river of unbreakable oaths. Acheron, the river of sorrow. Cocytus, the river of lamentation. Phlegethon, the river of fire, glowing like molten veins beneath obsidian stone. And Lethe, the river of forgetting, its waters smooth and quiet as sleep. Each river whispered its own lullaby. Each carried memories, regrets, and the fading echoes of mortal lives. Hades walked their banks often, not as a tyrant watching over captured souls, but as a custodian, ensuring that every spirit found its place. From the shadows of the realm, he shaped a guardian, Cerberus, a great hound with 3 heads, each one alert to a different truth. One head watched the living, one watched the dead, and one watched the boundaries between. Cerberus did not snarl without cause. He did not crave violence. He simply kept the order of things, as his master did. Next, Hades established the Hall of Judgment, a vast chamber of cool stone, its air still as held breath. Here, the souls of the dead stood before 3 judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, Aeacus. They listened to each life with patience, with fairness, with clarity. There was no screaming, no torture, no fiery pits, as later legends would claim. In the true underworld, justice was quiet. It was steady. It was inevitable, just like Hades himself. Some souls were guided to the asphodel meadows, a field of soft, pale flowers where they wandered peacefully, free of pain. Some were led to the Elysian fields, a realm of gentle light and eternal rest for those who had lived with honor. A few, the rare few, chose rebirth, to drink from Lethe, to forget, to begin again. Every day, Hades moved through these lands with calm purpose. He listened to the heartbeat of the realm. He kept the boundaries firm. He ensured no soul was lost or forgotten. And though he ruled millions, he was alone. Not lonely, just alone. He had no court of laughing gods, no gatherings of bright, drunken immortals, no festivals celebrating his name. The underworld was too quiet for such things, and Hades preferred it that way. In the silence, he found clarity. In solitude, he found strength. He did not envy Zeus' sky. He did not envy Poseidon's ocean. He did not crave worship. He did not thirst for chaos. He simply ruled, fairly, patiently, without ego, without anger, without noise. He was the god who did not seek attention, the god who did not demand temples, the god who did not force mortals to kneel. He asked only for respect, and even then, he was patient if it was not given. But the other gods misunderstood him. Mortals misunderstood him. They saw the darkness he lived in and assumed it was cruelty. They saw the silence around him and assumed it was malice. They saw his stern expression and assumed it was hatred. But Hades was none of those things. He was not evil. He was constant. He was not vindictive. He was resolute. He was not monstrous. He was simply a god who understood that all things must end, and that endings were not to be feared, they were to be honored. Yet even in his quiet kingdom, even with the weight of the dead on his shoulders, Hades felt something missing, a stillness deeper than the underworld itself, a silence that echoed through the vast halls. It was not a longing for company, nor for noise, nor for celebration. It was something far more subtle, a sense that the world was incomplete, that his realm, so carefully ordered, was waiting for someone who could walk its halls with grace, someone who could hold light in darkness, someone who could understand the language of silence as he did. He did not know her name. He did not know her face. He only knew that when fate moved, it would move quietly, just as it always had for him. And one day, on the surface, far above his shadowed kingdom, a maiden reached toward a blooming flower, a flower planted by destiny, a flower glowing too brightly for the world of the living. And as she touched it, the earth stirred, a door unlatched, a chariot rose, and Hades, the silent king, looked upon the one who would change the rhythm of the world. But that is a story we will continue soon. For now, breathe softly. Let the stillness of Hades' early life settle into your own. Let his patience calm your heartbeat. Let the quiet of the underworld curl around you like a warm shadow. And when you are ready, we will follow the path that leads him to Persephone. Before she became a queen, she was simply a girl with no throne, no title, no destiny written in stone. She was known only as Kor, the Maiden, a name as soft and unfinished as the petals she loved to gather. Kor lived beneath the warm embrace of sunlight, in fields that shimmered like gold dust scattered across the earth. Every morning, she stepped barefoot into the dew, letting the cool droplets kiss her skin. Her laughter drifted across the meadows like the first notes of spring. She carried woven baskets made of young reeds, their handles curved like the crescent moon, and she filled them with blossoms so bright they seemed to glow from within. The flowers adored her. They leaned toward her delicate touch. They bloomed earlier when she approached, and they held their petals open a little longer, as if trying to catch one more moment of her presence. Around her, danced the nymphs, light-footed, joyful, their voices ringing like tiny silver bells carried by the wind. They circled her playfully, brushing her arms with garlands of violets and slender strands of crocus. Together they ran through the fields until their shadows stretched long across the earth. Yet, even among all this brightness, something felt incomplete. Kor moved through life lightly, gracefully, but without a path of her own. She was cherished, adored, and endlessly protected. So protected that she had never been given the chance to shape herself. She was a maiden in the truest sense, untouched by sorrow, untouched by choice, untouched by destiny. A flower kept in perfect sunlight, shielded from the winds that teach roots how to grow strong. And all of this was by her mother's design. Demeter, the goddess of the harvest, watched her daughter with a devotion so fierce it bordered on fear. From the moment Kor opened her eyes to the world, Demeter vowed that nothing would ever harm her. She vowed that no god, no mortal, no whisper of shadow would ever lay claim to the child she loved more than the earth itself. Demeter was a goddess of abundance, but she loved with the intensity of grief, perhaps because she knew how fragile life could be. Perhaps because she understood loss in ways Kor could not yet imagine. Demeter grew the world around her daughter like a shield. She commanded flowers to bloom at Kor's feet. She instructed rivers to run softly where Kor wandered. She told the breezes to be gentle, the animals to be calm, the bees to sting no one near her child. And she warned Kor again and again, with a voice weighted by fear never to wander far. "Stay in the light," she whispered. "Stay where I can see you. Do not speak to strangers, especially those from the shadows. Do not look toward the deep places of the earth. Do not go near any man or god who lives below." Demeter never said the name Hades aloud. She did not need to. The warning curled through every word she spoke. A rule unbroken, a boundary untested, a fear unshared. Kor obeyed, because daughters often do, especially when they love their mothers deeply. And Kor did love Demeter fiercely, wholly, unquestioningly. Demeter was her world, her shelter, her sun, her everything. Yet even love can become a cage when it is too tightly woven. Kor was surrounded by beauty, but it was a curated beauty. She walked in fields, but only fields her mother had blessed. She spoke with nymphs, but only nymphs her mother had chosen. She lived in spring, but only a spring Demeter controlled. She had never felt true autumn chill. She had never touched the quiet sadness of winter. She had never seen the softness of dusk, when shadows stretch long like arms reaching out. Every path she walked was a circle, a perfect, unbroken, unchanging circle. Sometimes, when she looked across the meadows, she wondered what lay beyond the hills. She wondered about forests darker than the ones she knew. She wondered about caves, deep and echoing, where light struggled to reach. She wondered about places where flowers did not bloom for her, where the air tasted different, richer, older. But whenever these thoughts rose, Demeter's presence pressed gently against her mind, and Kor pushed the curiosity aside. One morning, as sunlight spilled across the fields like warm honey, Kor walked farther than usual. The nymphs skipped ahead, calling to her. "Come, Kor, look at these blossoms. They weren't here yesterday." She followed them with a soft smile. In the distance, a strange flower rose from the ground. It stood taller than the others, its petals glowing with an unnatural brilliance. The light that radiated from it was almost too bright, like a star that had fallen into the grass. The nymphs giggled and danced around it. But Kor felt something shift inside her, a flutter, a whisper, a quiet pull, as if the earth itself had exhaled her name. She stepped closer, her basket swaying gently against her hip. The air around the flower hummed softly, vibrating like the faint song of a distant harp. Kor paused. A strange sensation tingled at her fingertips. It felt like fate brushing against her skin for the first time. Still, she reached out. Her hand hovered above the glowing petals, so close she could feel their warmth, so close she could smell their sweet, intoxicating fragrance. The nymphs clapped and cheered for her to pluck it, but somewhere far away, Demeter froze. A chill rippled through her, sharp as an unexpected shadow. She called out her daughter's name, but the wind swallowed the sound. Kor's fingers touched the petals, and the earth trembled. The trembling was soft at first, barely noticeable, like the heartbeat of something waking beneath the soil. Then the ground cracked. A dark seam tore through the meadow, splitting it with a sound like distant thunder muffled by time. The nymphs screamed and scattered. Flowers fell, their glowing petals dimming in fear. Kor stepped back, her breath caught in her chest. The crack widened, slowly, smoothly, as though a door, long locked, was quietly opening. Deep beneath her feet, something stirred, but not with rage, not with chaos, not with violence. It stirred with purpose, with certainty, with destiny. And yet Kor did not know that name. She only knew the feeling spreading through her chest, something like fear, but gentler, something like curiosity, but deeper, something like recognition, but impossible. The light from the strange flower flickered, the earth sighed, and from the depths rose a rumbling shadow that carried with it the scent of old stone and distant stars. But this moment belongs to another part of the story. For now, return with me to Kor, before the chariot, before the shadow, before the transformation that would carve her into a queen. Kor lived in Demeter's love, a love warm and wild as the harvest sun, but it was also a love that feared what lay under the earth. Demeter knew the world too well. She knew that destiny was always patient. She knew that stories waited for their heroes, no matter how tightly a mother held her child. And so she guarded Kor with a desperation that only deep love can create. She taught her daughter the names of every flower, every seed, every bud that sprouted from warm soil. But she never taught her about the other side of life. She never taught her about endings, or transitions, or the quiet, ancient realm where roots reach downward instead of upward. Kor knew blossoms, but she did not know seeds that slept under the frost. She knew sunlight, but not shadow. She knew beginnings, but not the beauty of things that change. And because of that, she did not know herself. Not yet, but destiny, like spring, cannot be held back forever. No matter how tightly Demeter wove her boundaries, no matter how many warnings she whispered, no matter how brightly she lit Kor's path, there was always a moment waiting, a moment planted long before Kor took her first breath, a moment that glowed too brightly to be ignored. And when she reached for that strange flower, her life shifted, not with violence, not with punishment, but with transformation. For Kor was never meant to remain a maiden forever. She was meant to become something more, something powerful, something eternal, something that balanced the warmth of life with the quiet of death. But for now, she remained only Kor, a girl walking in a golden field, a girl watched by her mother's anxious love, a girl unaware that destiny was already reaching for her from beneath the earth, a girl standing on the edge of a story that would reshape the world. And soon, very soon, she would take her first step into the darkness that awaited her, not because she was stolen, not because she was weak, but because she was ready to become who she truly was, Persephone, Queen of Spring, Queen of the Underworld, Queen of the space between life and death. But that is for the next chapter. For now, breathe softly, rest deeply, and hold this image gently in your mind. A maiden in a field of glowing flowers, her hand hovering above a blossom too bright for this world, a mother calling her name, and fate whispering from the depths below. The moment hung between breaths, between sunlight and shadow, between the world Kor knew and the world waiting beneath her feet. A quiet moment, a fragile moment, a moment stitched from destiny, held gently in the palm of the earth. It began with a single flower, a narcissus, not like any other she had ever seen. It rose from the soil as if grown from moonlight instead of roots. Its petals glowed with an impossible radiance, soft and white at the edges, but burning with golden fire at the heart. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat made of light. Kor stood before it, her breath slowing, her world narrowing to a single point of brightness. Behind her, the nymphs whispered in excitement. Their laughter trembled like tiny bells, but Kor did not hear them clearly. The flower called to her, not with words, not with sound, but with the gentle pull of inevitability, as if the universe had exhaled her name through its petals. She reached out her hand, so slowly, as if moving through honey-thick time. Her fingers hovered above the bloom. The light brushed her skin, warm, then warmer, then almost too warm, like the breath of something ancient stirring deep below. In that moment, everything around her quieted. The breeze stilled. The nymphs' voices faded. Even the birds above ceased their songs and held the air with waiting wings. Kor's fingertips brushed the petal, just a single touch, soft, feather-light, and the earth responded, not with violence, not with thunder, not with a roar, but with a subtle, gentle shift, like a door quietly unlatched. A low murmur rolled beneath her feet. The grass trembled. The petals of nearby flowers shivered as though startled from sleep. The narcissus dimmed for the briefest heartbeat. And then the ground opened, a seam splitting the meadow in a perfect, silent line. Kor gasped, but the sound barely left her lips. Her basket slipped from her hand. Flowers spilled across the trembling soil. The earth yawned wider, not hungrily, not cruelly, but purposefully, the way a secret reveals itself when its time has come. A golden light, deep and molten, surged upward from the crack, Not sunlight, not fire. Something older, something from the heart of the world. The nymphs screamed and fled, their feet scattering petals in a frantic blur. But Kor remained frozen, caught between fear and fascination. The fissure widened beneath her. The meadow tilted gently, as if bowing to greet the figure rising from the depths. A chariot emerged, its wheels carved from obsidian, polished to mirror black sheen, its frame veined with threads of gold that shimmered like captured starlight. 2 colossal horses pulled it, their manes whipping like ink in underwater currents. Their hooves struck sparks of pale fire with every movement. But it was the man standing upon the chariot who stole the breath from the world. Hades, the unseen one, the king beneath all things. He rose from the shadow with an aura not of terror, but of stillness. A profound quiet surrounded him, deeper than any silence Kor had ever known. He was not monstrous, not twisted, not cloaked in malice. He was solemn, calm, ancient. His presence filled the air like the low hum of the earth itself. His eyes were dark, not empty, but endless, as if he had watched galaxies form, crumble, and rise again within their depths. Time itself seemed to fold around him, softening at the edges. He held no weapon. He made no threatening gesture. He simply looked at Kor, a look that saw her not as a maiden, not as a fragile thing to protect, but as someone whose story had called to his. Destiny, quiet and steady, rippled between them. Kor stepped back instinctively. Her heel touched loose soil. The crack beneath her widened with a soft groan. She wavered. The glowing narcissus fell from its stem, slipping into the darkness, and Kor followed, not because she chose to, not because she was forced, but because the earth shifted beneath her feet in one fluid, inevitable motion. She fell forward, but the fall was slow, suspended, as if the air itself cradled her descent. Her hair floated around her like strands of golden silk. Her hands reached out, not to save herself, but in reaction to the shock of movement. She did not scream. There wasn't time. Her breath caught in her throat. Her heart surged upward against her ribs. The world above blurred into streaks of light. The world below glowed with molten gold. Hades extended his arm toward her, not urgently, not desperately, but with calm certainty, like someone retrieving something that had always been meant for his hand. His fingers wrapped gently around hers, cool, steady, unyielding. The chariot shifted backward, carrying her with it. The ground above, sealed in a smooth, clean motion, as if the crack had never existed. The meadow fell silent, save for one thing, a single flower petal, drifting down, the last fragment of the narcissus. It landed softly on the grass, trembling in the still air. Kor's basket lay overturned nearby, its blossoms scattered like abandoned stars. In the underworld-bound chariot, Kor clung to Hades' hand. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought the world must hear it. Yet Hades remained steady, the embodiment of silence itself. He looked ahead, guiding the chariot through the fading glow. As the tunnel closed behind them, Kor's breath finally escaped in a soft, trembling exhale. She did not speak. She could not. Her thoughts tumbled like falling petals, confusion, fear, wonder, disbelief. But beneath all of it, something else stirred. A faint, unmistakable sensation. A pull. As if the world she was leaving felt less real than the one she was entering. The air cooled around them as they descended. Shadows curled along the walls like gentle waves. The sound of the mortal world faded completely. Only the steady rhythm of the horses' hooves remained. Then the faint hum of the underworld reached her ears. Soft, deep, resonant. A sound like the slow heartbeat of eternity. Kor's fingers loosened their grip on Hada's hand. She lowered her gaze. Her thoughts slowed. Her breathing softened. Something inside her shifted, an awakening that had slept beneath her fear. She did not know it yet, but this moment, this fall, this quiet collision of fate, had already begun reshaping her. Kor would not return to the world above as the same maiden. The Kor who touched that Narcissus would become a memory, a ghost of sunlight, and in her place, Persephone would bloom, not in light, but in shadow, not with innocence, but with power, not as a girl, but as a queen. For now, she was simply falling, falling into herself, falling into destiny, falling into the soft, inevitable gravity of the underworld. And the world above stood silent, a single petal resting on the ground, marking the moment Kor ceased to be only Kor, the moment she began becoming Persephone. Above the sealed earth, the world stood impossibly still. The meadow where Kor had vanished lay quiet, untouched, as though nothing extraordinary had happened. The narcissus petal rested softly on the grass. The wind held its breath, and for a moment, the world waited. Then Demeter screamed her daughter's name. The cry tore through the fields, like a wound, ripped open in the fabric of the world. She ran, through the flowers she herself had coaxed into bloom, through the grasses that bent desperately toward her steps. She searched for Kor's golden head, for the flutter of her dress, for the laughter that always hung in the air around her child. But the meadow was empty. Only silence answered her. Demeter fell to her knees. Her hands dug into the soil, still warm, still trembling with whatever force had opened it minutes before. But Kor was gone, gone, as if stolen by the wind, as if swallowed by the daylight, as if erased from the world. Demeter pressed her ear to the ground. She called again. Her voice cracked. No answer rose from the depths. No whisper, no echo, nothing. Demeter stood slowly, her hands shaking, and then the wandering began. For 9 days, she roamed the earth. No food passed her lips. No water touched her tongue. Sleep did not dare approach her. She carried 2 torches, one in each hand, their flames flickering wildly in the wind of her grief. The light illuminated her hollowed eyes, her trembling mouth, her hair tangled by frantic searching. 9 days. No food. 2 torches. Her sandals wore thin. Her robe grew heavy with dust. Her feet bled, but she did not stop. She walked across mountains where the air thinned. She crossed valleys where the grass bowed in sorrow. She wandered along riverbanks where spirits rose to watch her in silence. Everywhere she went, she cried the same words. Where is my daughter? Who has taken her? Who has dared to touch what is mine? She searched through forests where the trees whispered pity. She ran across plains where the horizon blurred with heat and tears. At night, the torches lit her path in twin ribbons of fire. By day, the sun beat down on her shoulders, but she felt no warmth. Her heart had become a cold stone lodged behind her ribs. On the 10th night, as her torches guttered low, Demeter reached the edge of a dark forest. A shape waited there, silent, still, a figure cloaked in moonlight and shadow. It was Hecate, goddess of crossroads, keeper of thresholds, walker between light and dark. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dimness, soft and sad. Demeter stumbled forward. Hecate, she gasped. Have you seen her? Have you seen my child? Hecate lifted her lantern. The light cast long, trembling shadows. I heard her scream, Hecate whispered. Her voice flowed like cool water in a cavern, a sound that cut through the world. Demeter's breath hitched. Then you know where she is? Hecate shook her head slowly. No, she said, but I heard the roar beneath the surface. I felt the ground open. Her words trembled like leaves in a cold wind. Someone from below has taken her. Below. The word hit Demeter like a blade. Her heart stuttered. Her body went rigid. She knew what below meant. She had feared it her entire life. She had warned Kor endlessly, obsessively, desperately. And still, it had happened. Demeter's voice cracked into a whisper. Hades. Hecate said nothing. She didn't need to. Demeter's knees buckled. The torches fell from her hands and landed in the dirt with soft thuds. Hecate pressed a steadying hand to Demeter's shoulder. There is only one who sees all, Hecate murmured. Helios, the watcher of everything beneath the sun. Demeter swallowed her sobs, gathered her torches, and rose. Her legs trembled. Her breath came in ragged bursts. But she walked toward the east, toward the high cliffs, where Helios rose each morning from the horizon of fire. The journey drained the last pieces of her strength. She climbed rocky slopes. She waded through dried riverbeds. She pushed through thorny brush that tore at her arms. At last, she reached the cliff at dawn. The world glowed gold. Helios rose in his blazing chariot, burning bright as truth. Demeter thrust her torches toward him. Tell me, she cried. Her voice shattered in the rising light. Tell me where my daughter is. Helios slowed. His chariot hovered above the cliff, the horses pawing at the air with hooves of flame. He looked down at Demeter, at her burned-out eyes, at her trembling hands, at her anguish that scorched the very air. And he sighed, a sound heavy with reluctant truth. I saw everything, Helios said. I see everything. Demeter's heart pounded against her chest. Then tell me, she whispered. Tell me who took her. Helios hesitated. The sun flickered. Then he spoke. It was Hades. Demeter fell forward, as if struck. The torches slipped from her fingers again. But Helios wasn't finished. And Zeus knew. The world stopped. Demeter's breath froze inside her lungs. What? Her voice cracked like broken stone. Helios lowered his gaze. He gave his brother permission. Demeter sank to the ground. Her palms pressed into the dirt, as if the earth itself were the only thing keeping her upright. Zeus, her own brother, the king of gods, the one who should have protected Kor, who should have protected her. He had betrayed them both. Her grief transformed. It deepened, darkened, hardened into something colder than winter. Demeter stood. She lifted her chin. Her eyes gleamed with a fury that could split mountains. If the king of gods will not protect my child, she whispered, then the world itself will feel my grief. And the world did. Demeter withdrew her blessings from the earth. Fields that once shimmered with gold shriveled into dust. Wheat bowed its head and collapsed. Barley withered before it could ripen. The green faded from the hillsides. The trees sagged beneath dying leaves. Vines curled in on themselves, their fruit rotting before it touched the ground. The air thickened with drought. The rivers thinned to mere threads of water, crawling slowly along cracked beds. The skies lost their warmth. Wind slowed to a faint, lifeless sigh. Animals starved. Humans wept in their barren fields. The world dimmed as if the sun itself feared to shine too brightly. The earth groaned under the weight of Demeter's sorrow. Seasons halted. Life froze. And the scent of famine rose like smoke from every corner of the land. Demeter wandered still, not searching now, not pleading, but grieving. She walked with heavy steps across the dying world she once nourished. Each place she passed fell further into ruin. Flowers curled into crisp shadows. Grass turned brittle and brown. Fruit blackened on the vine. The air tasted of dust and despair. Her grief became the grief of the world. Her hunger became the hunger of every living thing. Her sorrow became the sorrow of mortals and gods alike. On the 12th night, Demeter stood on a cliff overlooking the ocean. The waves were listless, the horizon dull. The world felt hollow, like a shell drained of life. She whispered Kor's name one more time. The wind did not answer. The sea did not answer. The earth did not answer. Only the silence spoke. A cold, merciless silence. The silence of a world without spring. The silence left behind when a daughter is taken. The silence that would not break until Kor returned. And far below, in the depths of the underworld, a young maiden sat trembling in a shadowed hall, unaware of the devastation unraveling above, unaware that her mother wandered through ruin, torches burning low, grief turning the earth to ash, unaware that her absence had become the world's undoing. But soon, the paths of mother and daughter would begin to converge again. Not in the sunlight, not in the warmth, but in the trembling space between worlds, where grief and fate and ancient law would collide, and where the first seeds of Persephone's transformation would begin to take root. When the chariot finally slowed, Persephone felt the world settle beneath her feet for the first time since the fall. The air was cool, almost crisp, carrying a faint scent of stone polished by time. The shadows no longer rushed past her, they stood still, like velvet curtains drawn gently across a quiet stage. For a long moment, she did not move. She simply breathed, in, out. Soft, shallow breaths meant to calm the trembling that lingered in her bones. Hades stepped down first, his boots touching the ancient ground with a calm certainty that reassured her more than any words could. Then, without urgency, without command, he offered his hand again. She hesitated, not from fear, but from awe. The underworld was not what she imagined. No fire, no screams, no torment, only stillness. A silence that felt alive, a hush that felt intentional. A breath the world had been holding for ages. Persephone placed her hand in his. His grip was steady, cool, patient. He helped her step down. Her sandals touched the ground, and she felt it, the pulse of something ancient, deep beneath the surface, a slow heartbeat, the rhythm of a world that moved at its own pace, untouched by time above. They stood at the entrance of a great hall, carved from marble so pale it seemed to glow from within. Veins of silver rippled through its pillars like frozen lightning. The ceiling arched high overhead, disappearing into a soft, luminous mist that cast the chamber in a dreamlike glow. And at the far end of the hall stood a throne, black stone, carved smooth as glass, silent, unadorned, yet more regal than any gilded seat on Mount Olympus. It radiated presence without demanding attention, much like its king. Persephone's eyes drifted over its edges, sharp, precise, clean. It looked like a monolith carved from night itself. Beside it was a second seat, smaller, carved from the same stone, but waiting, empty, awaiting purpose, awaiting her. But she did not know that yet. Hades walked a few steps ahead of her, then paused, giving her space to take in the vastness of the hall. He did not rush her. He did not drag her forward. He simply let her exist in this moment of arrival. Persephone took slow steps, each one echoing softly against the marble floor. Her footsteps sounded like distant droplets falling into a deep, still pool. She traced her fingers along the smooth wall, feeling its coolness seep into her skin. She found herself calming, grounding, as if the underworld were wrapping her in a quiet embrace she didn't yet understand. A low growl rumbled through the air. Persephone flinched. Hades turned slightly. His voice was nearly a whisper. "He will not harm you." Out of the shadows lumbered a massive-shaped Cerberus. 3 heads, 3 pairs of drowsy, mismatched eyes, 3 expressions caught somewhere between watchfulness and the edge of sleep. He was not the monster poets later imagined. He was gentle-looking, huge, yes, powerful, yes, but his tails wagged slowly, uncertainly, as if trying to figure out what to do in the presence of someone new. One head yawned. Another sniffed the air. The third blinked at Persephone with soft, curious recognition. She stood perfectly still. The creature padded closer, each step sending soft thuds through the marble. He lowered one head to her level. She extended her hand. Cerberus sniffed. Warm breath washed over her fingers. Then, with surprising delicacy, he nudged her palm. Persephone's lips parted in a small, trembling breath. He was warm, alive, guarding, not threatening. Hades watched in silence, his expression unreadable, but his posture softened. Cerberus curled up by the entrance, his massive body stretching across the threshold like a living curtain. One head rested on its paws. Another watched the corridor behind. The third continued to gaze at Persephone, eyelids heavy, tail thumping gently. Persephone stepped further into the hall. Her eyes trailed upward, following the mist that hovered at the ceiling, shimmering with faint, unearthly light. She felt as though she were inside a dream carved from moonstone. Hades walked beside her, not too close, not too far, just present. "If you wish to see the underworld," he murmured softly, "I will guide you." She nodded. Words still struggled to form inside her throat. They moved through a corridor long and silent. Torches glowed with pale flames, not yellow, not orange, but white-blue, like frost kissed by starlight. Their light cast slow-moving patterns across the black stone walls. Persephone brushed her hand against the carvings etched along the hall. Stories of souls, rivers, journeys, and quiet endings. Each symbol hummed faintly beneath her touch. The air felt thick with meaning, as though everything here remembered, as though the walls themselves were storytellers. They reached a balcony carved directly into the cliff face of the underworld. Beyond it stretched a vast expanse, fields of soft, pale grass swaying though no wind blew. The asphodel meadows. Persephone gasped softly. Souls wandered below, their forms gentle and luminous, as lantern lights drifting through mist. They were not lost. They were not suffering. They were simply remembering and forgetting, over and over again, like breath, soft, measured, infinite. Persephone placed her hands on the railing. The stone hummed beneath her fingertips, a deep, warm resonance, as though it recognized her. She did not know why, but tears pricked her eyes, not of fear, but of something else, something like recognition, something like coming home to a place she had never seen. Hades watched her quietly. "This realm," he said gently, "is not meant to frighten." She turned to him. Her voice was barely a whisper. "What is it meant to do?" "Bring order," he said, "and peace." She looked again at the drifting souls. "And rest," she added softly. His expression softened, a shadow of acknowledgement passing through his eyes. They descended from the balcony through another corridor, this one narrow, lit by glowing veins of crystal that threaded through the walls like quiet lightning. Persephone touched one. A warm pulse answered her. It felt like a heartbeat, or memory, or both. When they reached the end, Hades stopped. He gestured toward a wide chamber, illuminated by floating orbs of light. "This," he said softly, "is the Hall of Echoes." Persephone stepped inside. Sound moved strangely here, like whispers carried by water. She closed her eyes. Faint murmurs brushed her ears. Not frightening, not chaotic, just echoes. Lives once lived, names once spoken, dreams once held, memories drifting gently through the air like dust caught in sunlight. Persephone opened her eyes. "These are souls?" "No," Hades murmured. "These are their stories." Persephone walked slowly, letting the echoes wash over her. A child laughing, an old woman singing, a warrior whispering a name he once loved. Persephone felt her heart open, as though threads of their memories wrapped softly around her. She listened, she felt, she understood. Hades studied her with quiet intensity. Most who entered this hall felt fear, or sorrow, or unease. But Persephone did not. She felt belonging. She knelt beside a shimmering echo, one shaped like a wisp of light. It brushed against her cheek. She exhaled slowly, softly, gently. The wisp brightened. Persephone touched it. It dissolved into a warm glow that lingered on her fingertips. She smiled faintly. For the first time since the fall, Hades stepped beside her, his voice barely audible. "You hear them," he said, "not with fear, not with sorrow, but with understanding." Persephone met his gaze. "I think," she whispered, "they want someone to listen. Few ever do." Hades murmured. His eyes lowered. Even fewer ever can. Persephone felt something shift within her. A quiet certainty. A root anchoring into new soil. She rose slowly. Her steps carried her through the hall, through more corridors, through chambers where time felt like a slow, steady river flowing beneath her feet. Everywhere she looked, the underworld breathed softly around her. Not oppressive, not frightening, just waiting. They reached a small garden, enclosed by high black stone walls. Persephone blinked. She had not expected anything to grow here, but the ground was covered in pale flowers, soft, muted asphodel blossoms. They shimmered faintly in the dim light, opening and closing like the slow pulse of sleeping stars. Persephone knelt. She touched one gently. It warmed beneath her fingers. The petals turned toward her touch. She inhaled, then exhaled. Her breath moved across the flowers, and they swayed as though bowing to her. Hades watched from a distance. She responds to the living, he said quietly. And the dead, Persephone whispered. She closed her eyes. The garden hummed with quiet music notes made not of sound but of memory. Loneliness, longing, acceptance, peace. She understood. She felt. She listened. Her fingers pressed gently into the soil. It warmed around her skin, almost welcoming. First, she saw a seed, then another. Tiny, sleeping shapes, waiting for something to wake them. Persephone cupped her hands. Light gathered there, soft, gentle, barely brighter than a candle flame. She pressed her hands to the earth. The soil glowed. The seeds pulsed. Slowly, flowers began to grow. Not asphodel. Something new. Something delicate. Something pale with undertones of silver blue. Hades stepped forward, unable to hide the awe softening his features. You created these, he whispered. Persephone opened her eyes. She looked at the flowers blooming beneath her hands. A small smile curved her lips. I think, she said softly, the underworld just needed someone to remind it how to grow. She stood. The garden shimmered. A soft breeze, impossible, yet real, stirred the petals around her. She looked at Hades, not with fear, but with calm, with newfound strength. With gentle certainty, he reached out and placed something in her hands. A circlet, black metal woven with silver accents, shaped like intertwined branches. A crown. Persephone stared at it, startled. This is for me? Hades nodded once. You are not a prisoner here. His voice was quiet but firm. You are meant to rule. Persephone felt her heartbeat slow, deepen, a new rhythm emerging. She looked around the garden, at the halls, at the meadows, at the souls drifting through silver light. And she understood. Her destiny was not stolen. It was unfolding. She placed the crown upon her head. It settled perfectly, like it had waited for her since the beginning of time. Hades knelt not out of weakness, but out of acknowledgement. You are Persephone, he whispered, queen of the underworld, queen of the living memory, queen of gentle endings and quiet rebirth. Persephone stood in the center of the garden. Light shimmered beneath her feet. Flowers bloomed around her. The underworld breathed, and for the first time she felt whole. Not core, not maiden, not child, but queen. a queen born from shadow and softness, a queen carved by silence and memory, a queen who would give the underworld what it had always lacked: tenderness, a quiet compassion that could bloom even in darkness. The garden expanded outward, slowly, gently, a living testament to what she had become. Hades rose beside her, not towering over her, not claiming her, standing with her, equal, balanced, two forces intertwined: order and compassion, shadow and growth. Persephone took a slow breath. The underworld inhaled with her, exhaled with her, began to change with her. And the seeds she planted deep within herself finally began to bloom. The garden Persephone had nurtured glowed softly in the dim light of the underworld. Pale blossoms shimmered like stars caught in a gentle tide. The petals swayed to rhythms that echoed her breathing. The air carried a warmth that had never existed in these depths before she arrived. And yet, beneath the beauty, a quiet truth lingered, a truth waiting for its moment, a truth older than thrones and crowns and blooming flowers. For even in the underworld, where time stretched endlessly, fate moved with certainty. It came to Persephone on a day when she wandered alone through her garden, touching petals that seemed to glow beneath her fingertips. She felt calm, grounded, connected to this realm in ways she still struggled to put into words. The shadows no longer frightened her. The silence no longer unsettled her. Sometimes she wondered if they understood her better than the sunlight ever had. She knelt beside a cluster of asphodel blooms, brushing her hands over their soft petals. Her heart felt strange, not heavy, not light, simply suspended, as though something inside her waited again. Persephone stood and walked toward a stone bench carved from obsidian. On it lay a small bowl, a vessel of black glass polished so smooth it looked like a pool of still water. Inside were 6 pomegranate seeds, small, glistening like garnets. Their red shone so vividly it almost hurt to look at them in the dimness. She paused. Her breath trembled. She didn't remember asking for them. She didn't remember seeing anyone leave them there, but the seeds waited, quietly, patiently, like the flower she had once touched in the meadow above. Persephone reached for one. Her fingertips brushed its surface. It was cool, at first, then warm, then pulsing faintly, like a heartbeat trapped within something so small. The garden around her seemed to hush. The air thickened. The underworld exhaled. The seeds glowed just slightly alive in the half-light. A whisper tugged at the edges of her mind. Soft, seductive. Not a voice, not a thought, but an instinct. Persephone lifted a seed. She held it between her fingers. She stared at it, seeing her reflection fractured in its glossy surface. Her crown glimmered faintly. Her eyes looked different, deeper, weighted with something new. She breathed in slowly, and for a moment, she felt suspended between 2 worlds. The world she came from, and the world she was growing into. Why she ate the seeds is a question poets have debated for centuries. Some said she was tricked. Some said she was hungry. Some said she was naive. But the truth, her truth, was more complex. It could have been an unconscious motion, a habit from her days as a maiden, tasting fruit she picked from sunlit fields. It could have been curiosity, a spark of wonder she had always carried inside her, a desire to understand the underworld more intimately. Or perhaps As the ancient whispers suggest, Persephone wanted deeply, quietly to return. Perhaps she sensed that a choice was already forming in her heart, long before her mind understood it. Perhaps the underworld had become a part of her, and she, a part of it. The seed touched her lips. Her breath trembled. She tasted it. Sweet, sharp, bittersweet. A flavor like life and death braided together. She let the seed rest on her tongue. Its juice burst softly, warm, rich, heavy with meaning. She swallowed. A single heartbeat passed. The underworld answered. A pulse ran through the ground beneath her feet. Not violent, not frightening, just certain. A law older than Olympus awoke, and Persephone felt it settle inside her like a small ember of molten truth. She lifted another seed, then another. 6 seeds, 6 silent decisions woven from instinct and destiny. As she swallowed the last one, the air shifted around her. Not colder, not warmer, just deeper. The underworld seemed to lean in, like a living creature recognizing one of its own. Persephone stepped back, her breath unsteady. The garden shimmered faintly. The asphodel blooms pulsed with soft light. The seeds were gone, but their weight settled within her soul. She felt something change, subtle, but unalterable, as if a door had closed quietly inside her, a lock turning with a sound only she could hear. Again, fate had moved, quietly, precisely, inevitably. Footsteps echoed behind her, slow, measured. Hades stood at the entrance of the garden. He watched her hands, her lips, her eyes. He didn't speak at first. He didn't need to. He saw the truth. Persephone swallowed again. She felt the seeds settle deeper within her, like tiny suns sinking into dark soil. His voice finally broke the silence. Low, steady. You have eaten the fruit of the underworld. Persephone lowered her gaze. Her fingers curled unconsciously against her palms. I don't know why I did. Hades stepped closer, not scolding, not claiming, simply approaching with quiet understanding. Choice, he said softly, does not always speak loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Persephone looked up at him. What does it mean? Hades exhaled. Slow, heavy, ancient. It binds you to this realm. His eyes held no triumph, no satisfaction, only gravity, a quiet ache, a truth he could not soften, no matter what comes. He whispered, "You will return to the underworld." Persephone's breath caught. I will return? Yes. Forever? No. His voice gentled, but always. Persephone felt the weight of the law settle around her like a cloak, not choking, but inescapable. She thought of the meadows above, the sunlight, her mother's laughter, the world she once knew, and she felt a sharp pang, grief, love, longing, but she also felt something else, a strange warmth, a tether pulling her downward, a belonging she couldn't deny. She looked at Hades. Will Zeus undo it? No. The word was firm, clean, absolute. Not even Zeus can break the laws of the underworld. Persephone closed her eyes. The truth surrounded her like dusk, settling around a valley. She opened them again slowly. Her voice trembled. So I am bound. Hades bowed his head. You are connected. She breathed in sharply. Because I ate the seeds. Because you chose, he said gently. Whether you meant to or not. Persephone stepped away from him. Not in fear, but to feel the weight of her choice. She touched a pale blossom. Its petals warmed under her fingers. She whispered into the quiet. Will I ever be free again? Hades' voice softened. You will have freedom above. And freedom here. Her breath shook. But what about now? Hades looked at her with an expression she couldn't fully read. Sorrow, pride, understanding, and something else. Persephone, he said slowly, you have become part of this place, and it has become part of you. Persephone turned toward him fully. I didn't mean to stay. But you will. I didn't mean to leave. But you will. His words wrapped around her like fog around a sleeping landscape. She pressed her hand to her heart. I don't know who I am anymore. Hades stepped closer. You are the queen of the underworld, he murmured. Because you can hold two truths at once. She looked at him. Light and darkness, life and death, home and exile, choice and destiny. Persephone felt tears sting her eyes. Am I trapped? No. His voice was barely more than breath. You are claimed, not by him, not by force, but by the realm she had already touched with her compassion, by the souls she had listened to, by the flowers she had coaxed into bloom, by the seeds she had eaten. Quiet, small, simple, yet powerful enough to bind fate. The underworld had accepted her, and she had accepted it, even if she hadn't realized it yet. Hades lifted her hand gently. You belong to both worlds now. Persephone swallowed. And I must leave. Soon. She closed her eyes. The thought pierced her chest with a sharp ache. Leaving, returning, becoming a bridge, a cycle, a queen of two realms. The seeds pulsed inside her again. Soft, warm, unarguable. Her voice came out in a whisper. So this is the law. Hades nodded. The oldest law, and none can break it. None, he said quietly, would dare. Persephone looked around her garden. The blossoms bowed faintly toward her, as though grieving her departure before it even began. She felt their sorrow, their trust, their dependency on her presence. She felt the underworld breathe around her. Slow, deep, heavy with memory. She touched her lips where the seeds had passed, and she whispered the truth aloud. I will return. The underworld echoed her words. Soft, sure, inevitable. The moment Persephone whispered, I will return, the underworld seemed to settle. The air calmed. The flowers in her garden lowered their glowing heads in gentle acceptance. The rivers deep in the shadows shifted with quiet agreement, as though acknowledging a truth older than any throne, but far above. The world was unraveling. Demeter's grief had grown heavy enough to bend the seasons themselves. Her sorrow clung to the air like thick fog, choking life from the soil. Fields lay barren. Trees stood skeletal. Winds wandered without warmth. The world waited aching, starving, fading, and the gods began to fear that mortals would vanish entirely. It was then that Zeus, feeling the weight of the dying earth, sent Hermes, swift-footed, bright-eyed, messenger of gods and guide of souls. His sandals shimmered with silver wings, as he descended from the sky to the underworld's threshold. Cerberus lifted 3 sleepy heads. One yawned, one sniffed, one blinked in mild curiosity. Hermes bowed lightly. "I come with purpose," he said calmly. Cerberus stepped aside, his tails thumping the floor like muffled drums. Hermes entered the underworld, moving with respectful caution. His torch cast ember-like reflections along the black stone corridors. He found Hades and Persephone in the asphodel garden. Persephone knelt beside a cluster of pale blossoms, her fingers brushing petals that leaned into her touch. Hades stood beside her, silent as an ancient pillar of obsidian. Hermes paused, taking in the sight of them. The king of the dead, the blooming queen, light and darkness woven in quiet harmony. He cleared his throat softly. "Hades," he said. "Persephone." Persephone looked up. Her expression held a steadiness that had not existed when she first arrived in this realm. Hermes bowed. "There is a message from Olympus and from your mother." Persephone's breath caught. Hades' jaw tightened by the smallest measure. Hermes continued, his voice carrying a solemn weight. "The world is dying." Persephone rose slowly. "Because of me?" Hermes shook his head. "Because your mother's grief has smothered the earth. Nothing grows, nothing breathes." Persephone pressed a hand to her heart. She felt the echo of Demeter's sorrow beating like a second pulse within her. Hermes sighed softly. "It cannot continue. Humans fade, animals collapse, the rivers dry to their bones." Persephone lowered her gaze. "I must go back," she whispered. Hades' eyes softened with something like sorrow. Yet he nodded. "It is time," Hermes said. "But there is one more matter." His voice shifted, becoming careful. "Demeter demands that Persephone be returned to her fully." Persephone held her breath. "And Zeus?" Hermes hesitated. "Hades did not. He wants the world restored." Hermes nodded. "And for that, Persephone must return." Hades stepped closer to her. His shadow touched hers, merging in a single quiet shape. "You may go," he said softly. The words strained against something deep within him. "And yet," Hermes continued gently, "there is the matter of the seeds." Persephone closed her eyes. A faint warmth pulsed within her 6 small suns, glowing in the darkness of her memory. Hades spoke first. "Because she ate of this realm, she cannot fully leave it." Hermes exhaled. "Such is the law. Such is the boundary." Hades murmured. "Such is truth," Persephone finished quietly. Hermes stepped closer. "A solution is needed, a compromise, a balance between earth and shadow." Silence stretched, soft as velvet. Then Persephone lifted her chin. Her voice was calm, stronger than before. "What must be done?" Hermes spread his hands. 6 seeds were eaten. Then 6 months must be spent below. Persephone's breath trembled. "And 6 above?" Hermes nodded. 6 months with your mother," he said. "When the world will bloom again. When the fields will fill with life. When sunlight will warm every leaf. And 6 months here," Hades added, his voice deep and steady, "where your presence will guide the quiet, the shadows, and the souls." Persephone looked between them. "The world will survive?" Hermes nodded. "Because you bring spring," Hades added gently. "And you bring balance." Persephone exhaled slowly. She turned her gaze toward the shimmering asphodel meadows. So when I return above, life will return with me? Yes, Hermes said, and when I descend again, the world will rest. Rest, Hermes murmured softly. Sleep, Hades added. Wait. Persephone finished. The cycle formed itself around her as she spoke. Half the year in light, half in shadow, half in joy, half in memory. A breath, a heartbeat, a sacred rhythm between worlds. Persephone closed her eyes and felt the truth wrap itself around her like a soft cloak. It was not a punishment. It was not a theft. It was a balance, a cosmic pulse, a rhythm woven from love. When she opened her eyes, she saw something new in the world around her. The underworld no longer looked like a prison, nor a shadowed throne. It looked like a home she could return to, a home that waited, silently, faithfully, for her presence. And above, she could almost sense Demeter's desperate yearning, a mother's love stretching like roots toward her child. Hermes extended his hand. It is time. Persephone nodded. She stepped forward. Hades caught her hand, just for a moment. His touch was cool, steady, quiet like the realm itself. You will return, he said softly. Persephone looked up at him. And you will wait? Always. Her fingers squeezed his gently. I will come back. The underworld seemed to hum low, deep, almost reverent. Hades lowered her hands slowly. Then the world above will breathe again. Hermes guided Persephone toward the entrance. As they walked, the air shifted, the shadows thinned, the light brightened, the boundary loosened. Persephone felt something stir in her chest, a flutter like petals rising. She thought of Demeter's torches, her cries that cracked the dawn, her wandering through dying fields. Persephone whispered into the dim air, Mother, I am coming. At the threshold, she turned back one last time. Hades stood in the garden she had shaped among the pale blossoms she coaxed into life. Their soft glow reflected in his eyes. For a moment, everything was still. The king of shadows, the queen of returning light, two parts of a single rhythm. Then Persephone stepped into the passage that led upward. Hermes walked before her, guiding her with steady strides. The air warmed as they ascended. Color seeped slowly into the darkness. A faint, growing glow wrapped around her shoulders. Persephone felt the pull of the surface world, of sunlight, of wind, of her mother's arms. With every step, the world brightened. Hermes looked back at her. Persephone, he said softly, the world will change because of you. How? Your return brings spring. He pointed toward the growing light. And your departure brings fall and winter. Persephone stepped into the warmth. So the seasons are born of me and of her, Hermes replied. Of your bond, of your love. Persephone felt her heart swell. The world above finally opened, before her warmth rushing over her skin like a long-awaited embrace. She stepped into sunlight, into air that smelled of wheat and hope. Demeter stood only a few paces away, her torches extinguished, her eyes hollow with grief, until she saw her daughter, Persephone, alive, whole, returning. Demeter ran. Persephone's feet barely touched the ground before her mother swept her into trembling arms. The world exhaled with them. In that single moment, green surged across the hills. Trees stretched their branches wide. Flowers burst from the soil in dizzying waves of color. Birds erupted into song. Rivers regained their voices. Life returned. Spring blossomed from the embrace of a mother and daughter reunited. Demeter pressed her face to Persephone's hair. "You came back to me," she whispered over and over, as though afraid the world might steal her again. Persephone clung to her tightly. "I will always come back." Demeter pulled away just enough to see her daughter's face. "Always?" Persephone hesitated, then spoke softly. "Half the year." Demeter stiffened. Persephone placed a gentle hand on her mother's cheek. "For 6 months, I will be with you, and the earth will bloom." "And the other 6? Demeter whispered, dread filling her voice. Persephone lowered her eyes. "I must return." Demeter trembled. Persephone squeezed her hands. "Mother," she whispered, "when I go, the earth will rest. It will sleep. It will wait." Demeter's breath shook. "But it will not die again," Persephone said firmly. "Because now we understand." Demeter looked into her daughter's eyes. Deep, sure, changed. She touched her forehead to Persephone's. "The world," she murmured, "moves with our love." Persephone nodded. "With our bond, with our grief, and with our return." And so the rhythm was set. 6 months of light, 6 months of shadow, 6 months of spring and summer when Demeter's joy spilled across the fields like gold. 6 months of autumn and winter when the world folded itself into quiet waiting. A cycle woven not by gods on thrones, but by love between mother and daughter. A love strong enough to reshape the earth. A love gentle enough to teach the seasons how to breathe. And high above the blooming fields, a soft wind carried the promise of Persephone's return, and the silent certainty that the world would turn with her, when spring returned to the world above. And Persephone walked again beneath the warmth of sunlight. The underworld settled into a gentle stillness. It did not feel empty. It did not feel abandoned. It felt as though the realm itself was holding its breath, waiting with the patience carved into its bones since the dawn of time. Hades remained in his hall during those months, not pacing, not grieving, simply existing in the quiet way he always had. But something had changed. The shadows felt softer, the rivers slower, the meadows quieter, as though remembering the touch of the queen who had walked through them. Hades noticed it each time he passed through the asphodel fields. The souls drifted differently now, less aimless, more aware. Their steps echoed faint notes of the warmth Persephone had given them. Even Cerberus seemed calmer, curling more often beside the throne she had sat upon. Hades would pause at that empty seat, not with longing, not with sorrow, but with acknowledgement, a quiet understanding that the underworld had been altered in a way that he alone never could have achieved. For eons, the realm had been shaped by his presence, orderly, structured, measured. But Persephone had introduced something else, a gentle gravity, a softness that did not weaken but balanced, a tenderness that wove itself into the quiet corners of the realm like threads of faint moonlight. When the time came for Persephone to return, when the first leaves above turned brittle, and gold. Hades felt the shift long before she stepped onto the threshold. The air warmed, the meadows brightened, the rivers whispered more loudly. Even the mist shimmering along the walls pulsed with excitement. And then she appeared, descending through the passageway Hermes had guided her through months before, no longer trembling, no longer uncertain. Persephone walked with a new steadiness, neither the fragile grace of Kor, nor the hesitant steps of a frightened maiden. She walked like a queen, returning to her realm. Hades stood at the foot of the stairs. He did not rush to her. He did not reach for her. He simply waited, a still point in the vast underworld. When she approached, he bowed his head slightly. "Welcome home," he murmured. Persephone breathed deeply. The cool air filled her lungs like a familiar perfume. She glanced at the marble hall, the black throne, the silver-lit torches. "I have missed this place," she admitted softly. Hades' eyes warmed, though his expression remained calm. "And it has missed you." Their reunion was not marked by passion or dramatic embrace. It was marked by stillness, by two presences settling into place beside one another, two forces finding balance again. He ruled the bones, she ruled the memory. He held the order, she held the meaning. Side by side, they shaped the realm with equal strength but different touch. In the months that followed, the underworld flourished in a way that surprised even the ancient rivers. Hades continued his patient, methodical work, presiding over the judges, guiding the laws of passage, ensuring every soul found its rightful destination. He moved through the realm like a steady current, unwavering, timeless, unshaken by the changing winds of fate. Persephone moved differently. She walked with the softness of drifting petals, yet with a presence strong enough to calm storms. She visited the meadows often. Souls gathered around her, not out of obligation, but out of comfort. They whispered fragments of lives they once lived, names, faces, scents, memories that fluttered like faint sparks. Persephone listened. She always listened. Her voice was gentle, winding through the underworld, like a quiet melody. She learned every soul by their tone, by the rhythm of their faded footsteps. Where Hades brought structure, Persephone brought compassion. Where Hades placed boundaries, Persephone offered solace. Where Hades saw justice, she saw the stories behind it. Together, they created harmony, not through romance, not through declaration, but through coexistence, opposites interlocking like dusk and dawn. Persephone often spent time in the garden she had created during her first stay. The asphodel flowers still swayed in silver waves, but now other blossoms grew among them, those pale, silver-blue flowers that had bloomed under her hands. A new species, something born from both light and shadow, a flower that belonged only here. Persephone tended them daily. Hades watched from afar sometimes, leaning against a stone pillar, arms crossed loosely, his expression unreadable yet undeniably softened. One evening, as she knelt among the blossoms, Hades approached. "You've given these souls something I never could," he said quietly. Persephone looked up. "What is that?" "Gentleness." Persephone lowered her gaze to the flowers. "They needed someone to see them. And you do." She smiled faintly. "And you give them order. Without you, they would wander endlessly." Hades tilted his head, and without you, they would wander sorrowfully. Silence stretched between them, not heavy, not tense, soft, easeful, comfortable. Then Persephone asked, "Do you think the underworld is better now, with two rulers instead of one?" Hades paused. He looked at the meadows, the glowing rivers, the balanced quiet that hummed through the halls. "Yes," he said at last, "it is whole." Persephone absorbed that. "Do you feel displaced?" "No." His answer was immediate. "You bring what I cannot." Persephone looked at him. "And you bring what I cannot." Their eyes held a moment of deep understanding. A bond not romantic, not possessive, but reflective, like a still pool finding its ripples. Hades turned his gaze to the black throne. "Before you," he murmured. "This realm was orderly, but cold. And now it breathes." Persephone felt warmth gather in her chest, not the kind born of fire or passion, but the slow, ancient warmth of two truths meeting without clashing. When she presided beside Hades in the Hall of Judgment, the room itself shifted balance. Hades' presence brought clarity. Persephone's presence brought empathy. Together, they created fairness, more profound than either could have achieved alone. A soul would stand before them, trembling, confused, burdened with the remnants of life. Hades' gaze would settle on the essence of truth. Persephone would feel the echo of their story, and judgment would be passed not only with justice, but with understanding. Even the three judges, Minos, Rhadamanthus, Aeacus, felt the difference. Souls left the hall steadier, calmer, more whole. The underworld changed, subtly but unmistakably. The rivers flowed with smoother rhythm. The meadows glowed with softer light. The shadows thinned at the edges. Cerberus slept more soundly, stretched across both thrones, and the very air seemed to hum with a balance it had never known. Persephone's presence softened Hades, not by diminishing him, but by complementing him. Where he had always ruled with solemn strength, he now ruled with depth born from shared purpose. He spoke less sharply, listened more intently, allowed stillness to carry meaning where words once had to. And Persephone, she grew into her crown, not as Kor, the frightened girl chasing sunlight, but as Persephone, the queen who carried light into shadow, and shadow into light. She became the queen of memory, the gentle keeper of stories the world had forgotten. She became the queen of quiet endings, the one who soothed final breaths into softer transitions. She became the queen of rebirth. Even here, where flowers had once refused to grow, the underworld no longer felt like a place of exile. It felt like a threshold, a resting point between worlds, a realm not of punishment, but of transformation. And Persephone was its heart, its pulse, its soft glow in the deepest corridors. Hades was its structure, its spine, its steady, anchoring presence. Together, they were a dual force, two realms within a single realm, two truths, coexisting without erasing the other, two rulers, sharing one kingdom, without competition. Above, the world waited each year for Persephone's return. Below, the underworld waited for her just as faithfully. She was the hinge between worlds, the breath between seasons, the quiet balance that kept life and death from tearing apart at their seams. And Hades, the king, who had walked alone in shadow for ages, finally walked beside someone who understood the language of silence as deeply as he did. Their bond was not romance, not passion, not possession. It was equilibrium, a partnership of stillness and memory, of boundary and empathy, of shadow and bloom. And as the years unfolded in their quiet, cyclical rhythm, the underworld whispered a truth it had always known, but never spoken aloud. The realm beneath all things had never needed a conqueror. It needed balance. It needed a queen of returning light, and it needed a king who ruled not with fire, but with silence. Together, they shaped a kingdom that breathed with the calm certainty of eternity. Side by side, shadow and seed, Hades and Persephone, the quiet king, and the queen of two realms. Tonight, we walk into one of the deepest secrets of the ancient world. Not a story told in the open, not a ritual shouted from mountaintops, but a mystery whispered from mother to daughter, goddess to initiate, soul to soul. The Eleusinian mysteries, a journey woven into the spirit of Demeter and Persephone, a ceremony of darkness, of silence, of descent, of awakening, a ritual that promised one gentle truth. Those who emerged no longer feared death. Let the world grow quiet around you now. Let the night settle softly along your shoulders. Feel your breath slow. Feel your thoughts loosen. You are being prepared, just as the initiates once were. The story begins with fasting, the letting go of weight, the releasing of burdens. Fasting was never meant as suffering. It was an unmaking, a gentle stripping away of the noise and heaviness of mortal life. Imagine yourself standing in a dim room, a clay cup of water in your hands, nothing else, no bread, no wine, only silence, only breath, only the soft beat of your heart. Persephone fasts with you. Demeter watches over you. The world outside grows faint. The world inside grows clearer. Now the walking begins. The procession moves through the night like a river of dim light. Hundreds of torches, their flames shifting in soft orange waves. Shadows dance along the path. Sandals whisper against the earth. Not a word is spoken. Silence unites the initiates, more deeply than speech ever could. Imagine yourself holding a torch, the wood warm in your hand, the flame crackling softly, tiny pieces of sun carried through the darkness. You walk, and walk, and walk. The stars above watch silently. The moon hangs low, a pale guardian. Each step takes you farther from the world you know, farther from your old fears, farther from your old self. Your torch illuminates only a few feet of the path. Everything else is shadow, and yet you are not afraid. Persephone is walking ahead of you, her steps light, her crown glowing faintly in the dark. She knows this road better than anyone. She has walked it between worlds, and now she guides you through it. The air cools, the breeze slows, the night deepens. Darkness grows heavy around your ankles, like soft water rising. Your torch flickers, the road narrows. The voices of the world fade behind you. You reach a doorway carved from stone, massive, silent, unmoving. It is the entrance to the Telesterion, the great hall of the mysteries. Inside, darkness waits. Not an empty darkness, a living one, a darkness that holds memories, stories, and the echoes of thousands of souls who once stood where you stand now. You step forward, the torch dims. Your breath trembles lightly in your chest. Shadows wrap around you like a heavy cloak. This is the descent. The moment Persephone's story becomes your own. The world narrows to sound and breath. A faint echo of footsteps. The distant crackle of dying torches. The whisper of your own pulse in your ears. Then darkness becomes complete. Pitch black. Endless. And yet, safe. You stand in the heart of nothingness. No horizon. No shape. No color. You cannot see your own hands. The floor beneath you feels ancient. Cold. Smooth. Demeter's sorrow lies somewhere in this silence. Persephone's longing lingers in its edges. This darkness is their story made into space. It holds their grief, their love, their reunion. It holds every moment of loss and every moment of return. You breathe deeply, slowly, calmly. Your body relaxes into the blackness. Your mind quiets. Your heartbeat evens. This is not the darkness of fear. This is the darkness of soil resting in winter. The darkness of seeds waiting to open. The darkness of beginnings disguised as endings. You feel yourself sinking inward. Not down. Not falling. Just deepening. Becoming still. Becoming soft. Becoming ready. Then a faint sound begins. A rustle. A whisper. A breath of movement. A single spark of light flickers in the center of the hall. Tiny. Small as a firefly. Barely there. But real. Alive. And it grows. Slowly. Softly. Spreading light. Like a whisper. Unfolding across the dark. Persephone emerges from the glow. Not as a maiden now. As a queen. The queen of two realms. Shadow curls around her like a cloak. Light bends toward her like flowers leaning toward the sun. She raises her hand. Watch. She says not aloud, but through something deeper. Through the space behind your ribs, a small box is brought forward. Its lid is opened. Inside, something shines. Not bright, not blinding. Just a soft, warm glow, like the ember of a living flame. The initiates cannot speak of what they see. Even now, after thousands of years, no one knows the secret of the revelation, but everyone who experienced it described the same feeling. Something inside them waking, something old stirring, something heavy lifting away from the core of their being. A memory from before birth, a knowing older than language, the realization that death is not an ending. It is a doorway, a turning, a return, a moment of descent before a rising. Persephone steps closer to the initiates. Her eyes reflect every shadow, every soul, every seed that has ever sprouted in darkness. She places her hand gently over the glowing object. The light dims, then flares, then softens again like a long, calming exhale. You feel something shift inside your chest, a knot loosening, a fear dissolving, a weight melting. You remember something ancient, that life is a cycle, that nothing is ever truly lost, that everything returns. In darkness, seeds wake. In winter, the earth breathes inward. In death, the soul prepares to bloom again. The revelation sinks into you like warmth, into cold hands. It moves through you with the gentlest certainty, and you realize you are not afraid anymore. The darkness is no longer something to escape. It is something to understand, to pass through, to rest in, to be reborn from. The light fades. Slowly, softly, Persephone retreats into the shadows. The queen returns to her realm. The hall dims again, but not to blackness, to twilight, to a peaceful blue-gray glow that feels like the first moment before dawn. A hum fills the air, low, deep, gentle, the sound of a world turning, of a story beginning again. The initiates begin to move. Their torches spark back to life, as if awakening from sleep. The flames glow brighter now, steadier, more certain. You walk with them, out of the hall, up the path, toward the first touch of fresh night air. The stars look different, clearer, closer, as though the sky has shifted to welcome you back. The wind feels like a warm hand brushing your cheek. Your breath tastes sweet, fresh, awake. You step onto the open ground. The torches flicker in a gentle line. Faces glow with calm and quiet joy. No one speaks. There are no words for what was seen, for what was felt, for what has changed, but everyone knows the truth. A truth older than temples, older than writing, older than even the gods themselves. Those who emerged no longer fear death. You feel it too, a deep, steady understanding, resting in your bones, a peace that stretches through your ribs, like roots settling into warm soil. You walk into the night with the others. The torches sway softly, painting the air with ribbons of orange and gold. Above, a crescent moon smiles faintly. Its light touches the path ahead like a gentle reminder. There is always a return. There is always a rising. There is always a spring after winter. You inhale deeply. The earth feels warm beneath your feet. The sky feels vast above you. And your heart feels calm, open, steady. You have walked through darkness. You have seen the mystery. You have been held in the quiet hands of ancient truth. Persephone walks beside you now, not seen, but felt, a soft presence, shimmering at the edge of your awareness. A queen of return, a queen of rebirth, a queen of the path between worlds. Demeter walks with you too, a mother's warmth at your back, guiding you toward life. Two goddesses, two forces, holding both sides of your journey. You step forward. The torchlight ripples. The night breathes. And you carry with you the certainty that death is not darkness. It is a turning, a cycle, a return home. You feel lighter, softer, brighter. And as you walk through the sacred night, you carry the whisper of the Eleusinian mysteries within you. That life does not end. It continues. It transforms. It sleeps. And it wakes again, just as Persephone does, just as the seasons do, just as you will, again and again, through every dusk and every dawn. Death, to the ancient Greeks, was not an ending, not a wall, not a final plunge into darkness. It was a passage, a soft doorway, a crossing between breaths, a quiet step from the sunlight of the mortal world into the vast, gentle expanse of the underworld. Most feared it because they did not understand it. But those who looked closely, those who listened to the stories of Demeter, Persephone, and Hades knew the truth. Death was not punishment. It was transition. It was the turning of a page, the folding of one life into the next, a moment of release, so natural that all living things eventually embraced it. Under the earth's crust, beyond the river that marked the boundary of life, lay the realm of shadows, broad, quiet, strange, and soft in its own way. Not all souls moved through it the same, but all souls found their place. Imagine now that you are drifting with them, slow, light, as if you are made of mist and memory. The first place most souls reached was the Asphodel Fields, a vast meadow stretching farther than any horizon. Soft, pale grass swayed gently under a breeze that never grew strong. The air held a faint scent of nothingness, clean, calm, empty, peaceful. Souls wandered here without urgency, not lost, but drifting, not suffering, but remembering, not joyous, but quiet. The Greeks believed this was where the majority of humanity came after death, not because they had failed, not because they had done wrong, but simply because they had lived ordinary lives, lives filled with small joys, small sorrows, small duties, lives that were neither heroic nor monstrous, lives like most of ours. The Asphodel Fields welcomed them. No judgment, no fear, no sharp edges, just endless meadows under a soft gray sky. Listen, there is a sound here, a faint whispering carried by the wind, like distant voices murmuring memories, like stories half forgotten being retold by the breeze. The Greeks believed the wind in these fields spoke in the voices of those who came before, echoes of past lives brushing gently against the present. Persephone often walked among these souls, her footsteps barely touching the grass. They would drift toward her, drawn by her calm presence, by the soft warmth in her gaze. She listened to them, to their regrets, to their triumphs, to the forgotten corners of their hearts. She was the queen of memory, after all, and memory was the language of the Asphodel Fields. Further still, past the meadows of drifting souls, lay a realm reserved for the rarest spirits, the Elysian Fields. Elysium, a place of gentle sunlight, soft breezes carrying the scent of blooming flowers, warmth that felt like the first spill of dawn on a spring morning. Here, the greatest heroes, poets, philosophers, and good souls found rest, not because they demanded it, not because they were powerful, but because they carried something luminous within them, a bright flame, a noble sincerity. Elysium was not loud with joy, it was quiet with contentment, a peace that seeped into the bones of the soul, until every worry melted away. Souls here walked through fields of green so vivid they seemed almost unreal. They danced slowly under golden skies. They sang songs that felt like echoes of happiness itself. Time did not move quickly here, nor did it stand still. It flowed like warm honey, slow, sweet, unhurried. Some souls remained here forever, content in their endless spring. Others chose to return to the world of the living, for even in paradise, some spirits felt the pull of the mortal world. The Greeks believed in reincarnation, not always, but sometimes. Sometimes a soul's journey was not complete. Sometimes it had more to learn, more to give, more to understand. Plato wrote of this. He described the soul as a traveler, one who learned through lifetimes, who grew wiser with each passage, one who carried fragments of truth across the river of forgetfulness. Before returning to the world of mortals, souls drank from the river Lether. Forgetfulness. Its waters were cool and soft on the tongue. A sip erased sorrow. A sip erased joy. A sip erased names, faces, stories. Souls drank so they could begin again without the weight of their past lives. And yet, Plato said the wisest souls drank the least, choosing to return to life with memory half intact, intuition sharpened, wisdom humming faintly beneath the surface like a forgotten melody. Picture them now, souls standing along the riverbank, some drinking deeply, some only tasting, each preparing for a new journey, each ready to wear a new body, a new name, a new story, and in time, they would return again, to the asphodel fields, to Elysium, or to the judgment hall, where Hades and Persephone presided. The underworld was not a place of endings. It was a circle, a soft turning, a cycle that carried on endlessly, like seasons breathing across the land. Persephone watched these souls with gentle understanding. She knew what it meant to travel between life and death, to belong to both realms, to feel the pull of sunlight and the embrace of shadow. She understood the quiet courage it took for souls to step into new lives, and she understood the peace that came with resting in old ones. She walked with them, guided them, held the edges of their stories with tender care. Hades guided as well, though in his own way. He did not comfort, he did not soothe, he observed, he ensured balance, he protected the boundaries. Where Persephone brought empathy, Hades brought structure. Where Persephone brought softness, Hades brought clarity. Where Persephone listened, Hades understood. Together, they shaped the journey of every soul, from the moment they crossed the river, to the moment they were judged, to the moment they found rest. Some souls stayed, some wandered, some rebirthed, some glowed, some faded gently into memory, and all were held in the vastness of the underworld, in the stillness of the meadows, in the golden hush of Elysium, in the cool waters of Lethe, in the quiet hall where judgment carried the weight of fairness, not fear. This was the circle, the breath of existence. Inhale life, exhale death, pause afterlife, and then inhale again. Rebirth, new beginnings, rising from ancient endings, just as Persephone rose each year from the underworld, just as spring emerged from winter, just as warmth returned after months of cold stillness. Death was not final. It was a season, as the Greeks understood deeply, profoundly, beautifully, a season like any other, a season that asked for surrender, for softness, for trust, and one that promised return, a return shaped by choices, by virtues, by wisdom carried quietly through time, by memories tucked beneath the ribs of the soul. Many mortals lived their lives without thinking about death, fearing it as a shadow lurking just beyond the edge of vision. But those who understood the cycle, the ones who heard the whisper of the Eleusinian mysteries, who felt Persephone's footsteps echo through the earth, held a different view. They knew that death was simply another doorway, one they would pass through gently, without fear, because the underworld was not darkness. It was rest. It was remembrance. It was possibility. The asphodel fields welcomed them with soft winds. Elysium shone with warm light. Lethe waited with cool, restful waters. Persephone watched with compassion. Hades watched with steady certainty. And beyond all of it, the circle turned. Quietly, endlessly, always leading back to life. Always leading back to beginnings. Always leading back to stories yet to unfold. So breathe softly as you follow the souls in your mind. Let your thoughts drift through the meadows. Let your spirit wander toward the golden calm of Elysium. Let the idea of reincarnation settle into you like a warm blanket. Let the truth of return calm your fears. In this world, and in the ancient world, nothing was ever truly lost. Not memories, not souls, not love. Everything came back around in time. And as Persephone stepped each year from shadow to sunlight, her movement reminded all who watched gods, mortals, and souls alike, that death was a pause, a winter, a soft breath between chapters, and life was the return, the spring, the bloom, the continuation of a story that would last as long as the world turned. The circle is gentle. The circle is kind. The circle is unbroken. And within it, every soul finds its way. The story drifts now toward its final breath. The journey has quieted. The shadows have softened. The threads of fate have settled into a gentle stillness. You have walked beside Hades. You have walked beside Persephone. You have followed them through seasons, through darkness, through light, through loss, through rebirth. And now, the path narrows into silence, into rest, into a place where the world exhales. The underworld sits calm tonight. Its rivers flow in slow, silver ribbons. Its meadows shimmer faintly in the dim glow of wandering souls. Its corridors stretch quietly into the timeless dark, and upon the throne of black stone carved from shadow and time itself Hades still sits, unmoving, untroubled, watching everything and nothing with the same steady calm. Hades van goy door, I am lang, nu mot quai lut qua vu true, the quiet king, the anchor of the underworld, the one presence that neither fades nor burns, but simply is, a truth older than storms, older than seasons, older than even the gods above. His silence is not hollow, it is full, full of patience, full of memory, full of endings that are not truly endings. Meanwhile, somewhere far above, the earth breathes softly under blankets of frost and falling leaves. It waits. It listens. It holds its breath, the way a child waits at a doorway for a returning parent. Demeter wanders the fields again, not searching this time, not grieving, simply waiting. Her torch glows not with anguish, but with anticipation, warm, gentle, welcoming, and far below, deeper than the last root, deeper than the last heartbeat, deeper than any mortal dream, Persephone stands near the threshold between realms. Her crown glows faintly in the dim air. Her hands trail across the petals of the flowers she coaxed from shadow. Her breath is steady. Her gaze is calm. She is ready. Ready to rise, ready to return, ready to bring spring to the world above once more. Persephone will rise, and the earth will open in quiet joy. Persephone se tre len, va se lai tre shung. Each movement as old as time, each return a heartbeat, in the rhythm of the world. each descent a reminder that nothing is permanent except the cycle itself. The seasons are her breath, her heartbeat, her footsteps across two realms. When she rises, the world warms. When she descends, the world rests. This is the sacred balance. This is the eternal agreement. This is the quiet truth whispered through every falling leaf and every budding flower. And as she moves, Hades remains, watching, waiting, accepting her departures without sorrow and her returns without celebration. Their bond is not loud, not burning, not soft or delicate. It is steady, balanced, a perfect counterweight of shadow and bloom. Two presences that shape the world, simply by existing. And so, the seasons breathe, and you may rest now. You may let your thoughts loosen. Let your body sink deeper into stillness. Let your mind drift like a leaf, floating on a quiet river. The story is ending, but not ending. Like Persephone, it will rise again when you need it. For now, let it fall into hush. Let it curl into the darkness, like a seed settling into soft soil. Feel the night gather around you, warm and gentle. Feel the shadows wrap themselves lightly around the edges of your awareness. Feel your breath deepen, slow and soft. In, out, in, out. Imagine a single flame in the distance, small, calm, steady, a quiet flame at the edge of darkness. It flickers softly, painting the air with gold. Its glow is warm, but fading. Its light dances like a final whisper. Watch it. Let your eyes rest on that small, wavering spark. It trembles. It leans gently to the side. It grows smaller. Its glow softens into an ember, a tiny pulse of warmth, in a vast, gentle dark. Then, with one last shimmer, the flame exhales and fades. Darkness closes softly around it. Not cold, not empty, just quiet, just peaceful, just night. And in that night, you rest, held, safe, still. May your breath fall into the rhythm of the seasons. May your dreams drift through meadows of asphodel. May your heart find the peace of Elysium. And may the quiet flame guide you gently into sleep. Good night. Rest now. Let the story go. Let the world soften. Let darkness cradle you. The cycle continues. The seasons breathe. And you may rest now.